Good morning and blessings to you, brothers and sisters, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. You are the Messiah. That's the response the disciples give to Jesus when he asked them, "Who do people say that I am?" This is a theme throughout the first part of the Gospel of Mark. At every turn in the earliest Gospel, Jesus is talking with his disciples about what the public perception is of him and his ministry. And in this particular part, Mark chapter 8, there's a turn, a pivot to use modern parlance, where Jesus recognizes implicitly in the discussion with his disciples, when they say he is the Messiah, he agrees. But he still tells them to keep it quiet, just like he has all throughout the chapter of Mark thus far. It's interesting to me, as I heard Deacon Sue read this verse one more time, that surely we have all heard many, many times, that the part where Jesus gets into a dispute with Peter is brought upon by Peter. No sooner had Jesus asked the disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And Peter says, "You're the Messiah." Then Jesus says, "Let's just keep this between us. Okay, fellas?" But did you hear that little additional part before Jesus gives Peter the great rebuke? Peter pulled Jesus aside to rebuke him. What do you think Peter was thinking? First of all, who is he to argue with Jesus in the first place? And second, the gospel doesn't give us any indication as to exactly what Peter was saying, does it? It just says, Peter pulled Jesus aside and began to rebuke him. And Jesus, of course, says, really the greatest rebuke of all. Think of how crushed Peter must have been when Jesus looked at Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan." Isn't that something? Is there any greater insult? God himself calling you the devil? I can't even imagine what Peter must have said to it. I can't even imagine. And yet when Peter does that, he symbolizes not just all the disciples, but all of us. Because it won't be long, and Jesus foretells this in the rest of this gospel lesson this morning, it won't be long before all the people betray him, and then he's led to his death and eventual resurrection. And that, friends, is the focus of my sermon this morning. Because, of course, one of the greatest verses in all the Gospels is in this gospel lesson today. Take up your cross and follow me. Those that deny themselves will live. Those that attempt to save themselves will die. When Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me, he's telling his disciples, you have to live the way that I tell you to live. You have to do what I tell you to do. You follow the commandments that I've given you, and you will have everlasting life. And yet it's so hard to follow that simple instruction, isn't it? It's so hard to follow that simple instruction of just take up your cross and follow me. As I was reading this gospel lesson this morning, it occurred to me even more deeply than before that Jesus knew exactly what was going to happen to him. Notice right after he rebukes Peter, he says, well then, the gospel writer Mark says, then Jesus began instructing the disciples. He's going to be challenged by the Pharisees and chief priests. He's going to be rejected by them. He's going to suffer greatly. And then he's going to die. Then he's going to come back 3 days later. That's the gospel, the core of the gospel message this morning. But when Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me, he's telling us that he knows not just that all this is going to happen, but exactly the way he is going to die before he is resurrected, right? Because there's nothing in the first part of the gospel lesson where he mentions how he's going to die. He doesn't say they're going to crucify me. And yet just a couple of verses later, he says, pick up your cross and follow me. He knows exactly what's going to happen. How could this be? He's just a man. But that's why this is such an important passage in the entire gospel, and frankly in all the gospels, because this is where we recognize Jesus is aware he is the Messiah. And as we say in the Nicene Creed in just a few minutes, we believe in God the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and we believe in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord. Only God can know what happens in the future like this. Only God can know not only that he's going to be rejected by the chief priests and Pharisees, but in exactly the way that he's going to die and then come back to life in 3 days. Only God can know all of this, and only God can tell us, this is how you must live. Pick up your cross and follow me. This is a critical gospel lesson, of course, not only in the life of Christians, but in the life of St. Gabriel's this morning as we start our stewardship campaign for 2015. Wink Porterfield, Trish, and I have been working hard for the last couple of weeks to try and figure out the best way to put our stewardship campaign together, and Wink is going to talk with you about that during the announcements this morning. But I can think of no greater way to start a stewardship campaign than having a gospel lesson that says, take up your cross and follow me. In directing us to live our lives according to his commandments, Jesus is giving us all the guidance we need. Take up your cross and follow me. The way Wink and I have talked about it is the way stewardship chairmen and pastors have talked about it in all churches for thousands of years. There are 3 basic ways to give to the church, but they all boil down to picking up your cross and following me. You can give of your time and volunteer in the church. You can give of your talents and volunteer in the church. And you can give of your treasure. But either way, Jesus tells us at the end of this gospel lesson what it means. Those who give up their lives will have it, and they will be saved. Those who give up their lives will have it, and they will be saved. And so I like the lesson that we also heard from the psalm this morning. I hadn't quite put it together until I heard our reading of the psalm this morning. When the psalmist says, your judgments lead to righteousness, and I hope and I pray that my meditation and the words of my mouth will be acceptable to you. That was the end of Psalm 19, which many pastors, by the way, use to start off their sermons. Some of y'all may have heard that in other churches. When the psalmist says that this morning, he's talking about living according to God's law and what that means for him. And I'd like for y'all to think about that as the start of this stewardship campaign. Whether you think of 2016 as a year where you're going to give more time, or you're going to contribute more of your talents, or you're going to donate more of your treasure, think about it in a prayerful way like the psalmist did. I would encourage you to go back and look at the end of Psalm 19 for that purpose. A prayerful meditation for what it is that God's calling you to do in the life of St. Gabriel's. And ultimately, how that contribution that you bring to our parish helps you pick up your cross and follow Jesus. Because in the end, if the goal of our parish is to live as Christians and provide unconditional love, not only to each other, but to the entire world, there's no better way than to figure out how your time, your talents, or your treasure can ultimately help you pick up your cross and follow Jesus. Amen.
Amen.